Stephen King says The Flash is the greatest movie to come out of the comic book genre. And I have questions for Stephen King now. Mostly, how much did they pay you? That was a harsh start. Buckle up, kids. It's going to be a harsh review. The Flash is directed by Andy Muschietti, who made It 1, and it was great, and then made It 2, and it wasn't. And now he's made an even worse movie. And it's a shame, because I actually think Andy Muschietti seems pretty talented, and I like him. But this was bad. This movie's not good. And it looks bad. And they had to stand by an actor who's very problematic in order to market this movie, which also looks bad. This movie, there's no win here. Even if this movie makes a little bit of money, which I honestly don't think it will, there is no win here. This movie is a catastrophic loss for Warner Brothers. And part of the reason for that is that they have thrown so much weight into saying this is the greatest thing we've done. You will understand why we had to stand by Ezra, because we made a movie that is so good that you're going to be blown away. This is the greatest. This isn't even a good movie. It doesn't make any sense. And at points, it's like actively bad to the point where it seems intentional, at least with the CGI. The CGI, there was a point where they were like, hey, stop spending money on this. Edit the CGI in a PS3. You know, God of War 3, not God of War Ragnarok, God of War 3, not the remastered version. Make it look like that. And they went, sure, yeah, we'll do that. And it does. It looks like that. This is the first time I've ever sat down to do a review of a movie that I saw in a theater to say, if you're going to watch this in a theater, if you have to see it in a theater, find a smaller screen. Because I saw it in IMAX. I saw it on the biggest screen in Toronto. There are parts of this movie that I think will not look as bad if it's smaller. But because I was seeing it on such a big screen, I was like, oh, Ezra Miller's CGI in this scene. And it's obvious, and I hated it. And part of the problem with that is that this movie stars Ezra Miller, the very controversial person who might end up in jail, we don't know yet, as two versions of Barry Allen. And I would say 30% of the movie is scenes where it's just the two of them. And in those scenes, primarily one of them is always CGI, and you can always tell. And if you like the version of Barry Allen from the Justice League, you'll probably like this movie more than I do. But I've never liked this interpretation of Barry Allen. And so for me, it still didn't work here. Was it better at points? But it's also inconsistent. Barry Allen has a lot of quirks at the beginning of the movie that disappear as soon as he has to work with his younger self. There's just a lot about it that didn't work for me. And the fact that it didn't work narratively and also looked bad was really hard to get through. You want to enjoy those big action scenes, right? Oh, like the plot's a little bit dumb, but the action was amazing. But here the action, it wasn't amazing, and it like actively didn't look good. There's one scene in the middle that does, but you've already seen the whole scene in the trailers. So I don't know that there's a lot to the fact that they just showed the entirety of the best action scene already. Michael Keaton is back as Batman. He is in the movie. He doesn't necessarily feel like the Bruce Wayne Batman from the Tim Burton movies, but he delivers a great performance. He's dialed in, and honestly, most of my favorite moments in this movie are when he's on screen, especially when he goes a little bit more sentimental and a little less like goofy Batman. That really worked for me. Sasha Kaye is in this movie as Supergirl. She's great. She's fantastic. She's so underserved by the film, and I think that the movie would be better if it had like introduced her earlier and given her more to do. I would watch a whole series of movies with her starring as that character. I think she brought it, but the movie was not very interested in giving her a lot to do. And so, you know, I feel like it was kind of a waste because I don't know that we'll ever see this version of this character again. And this is the only thing we get from her. Not my favorite. Kiersey Clements, speaking of women who are absolutely wasted by this movie, Kiersey Clements is back as Iris West, and she's great for the like 45 seconds that she's on screen. Absolutely wasted. Really disappointed with what they did with Iris West, particularly her final moment in the movie is so cringy. Let's go. You know what? Let's ping pong between things I liked and things I didn't. Ben Affleck, amazing. Amazing. This might be the best Ben Affleck has been as Batman. It feels like he has grown into this character in a way where I walked out of The Flash and the only thing I want more from this is Sasha Calle as Supergirl and Ben Affleck as Batman. Like those two, they're really good in this movie. And there's not a lot of Ben, but when he's on screen, he's great. He is so good as Bruce Wayne here. His bat suit looks fantastic. Loved it. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to do two things I liked about the movie in a row. Maribel Verdú, I hope I'm pronouncing that name right. She plays Nora Allen, and Ron Livingston replaces Billy Crudup as Henry Allen. They're both great. They both are dialed in. They crush it as Barry's parents. But again, much like everybody else in this movie, because so much of it is just the two Ezras playing with themselves. That sounded wrong. I'm sorry. Everyone else just doesn't get a lot to do, and it's unfortunate, honestly. I wish that they had given Ezra more scenes with other people, because the scenes where I liked Ezra the best are the scenes where they're interacting with other people and not the scenes where they're interacting with themselves. The action sequences in this are serviceable, not great. The multiverse stuff is fine. It's not used in a way that I think is very good. And in comparison to the litany of brilliant multiversal projects we've gotten in the last few years, it's severely lacking. Like, this movie is hurt so much by coming out 2 weeks after Across the Spider-Verse, where that film was like, here, look at how amazing and cool this can be, while also having a satisfying narrative that pays off multiple character storylines. To follow that up with The Flash, which barely pays off its main storyline and mostly uses its multiverse as props that don't speak, really disappointing. And honestly, like, leaving this theater was weird. The movie ended, the terrible post-credit scene ended, and the movie was just silent. I saw a tweet where someone described their movie theater, not mine, but I feel like they had a similar experience to me. They described their movie experience as walking out was like walking out of watching your home team lose in the playoffs. And I felt that, right? Like, my screening was silent, and everybody stood up, and we started to walk down the aisles and down the stairs, and someone went, wow, this is weird. It's really quiet in here. And a few people chuckled, but people still didn't talk. And this was a advanced screening for fans. This was the fan screening. They gave us comic books, these like limited edition opening night comic books. This was the kind of event. They had a big statue of Ezra Miller that people were actively not taking photos with, because who's going to post a photo of themselves with a statue of Ezra Miller right now? It should have been Batman or Sasha Calle. It really should have been anybody else. But walking out of the theater, I was like, oh, this feels bad. Everyone here is in a Flash t-shirt, and this feels bad. That sucks. And if you had a different experience, I'm so glad. I don't ever want to dislike anything. I don't. I want to like things. But when the plot, I haven't talked about too much about why I don't like this, but it's hard to without spoiling the plot, and I don't want to just do spoilers. Maybe at the end I'll talk a couple really quick. But the plot of this movie actively doesn't work on a number of like just intellectual levels. And it's really unfortunate, because they want you to get invested in Barry's journey, but it doesn't like make sense. It doesn't treat its own world seriously enough. And all of those other multiversal projects do. The things that Everything Everywhere All at Once, Across the Spider-Verse, hell, the Crisis on Infinite Earths on DCCW did was they took the elements that they were using from the multiverse to take their story seriously. And that doesn't mean they weren't funny. Across the Spider-Verse is hilarious. Everything Everywhere All at Once has the funniest scene I've seen in a movie in years. I cried laughing. You can watch the reaction on this channel. You can be funny while also taking your world seriously. And this movie did not know how to do that. It constantly, in a way that I think a lot of people complain about Marvel movies, weirdly, it constantly makes jokes about its world that detract from the active narrative development of its world. And in doing so, it became so hollow and soulless. And when Michael Shannon, who plays General Zod in this movie, is on the press tour saying, this feels like people playing with action figures, but there's no satisfaction here. There's no weight. I get it watching this movie. I don't get it watching some of those other properties, right? There's a lot of heart in a lot of those other properties, but here I get what he means. If I was in his role in this movie, I'd agree. He's wasted. Kiersey Clemons is wasted in this movie. Sasha Calle is wasted in this movie to serve a narrative that doesn't matter and just falls apart. if you think about it for a half of a second. And I don't know. It doesn't matter because the DCU is over, but the weight, the clout that so many people traded in to promote this movie, to stand by Ezra through everything they've done. And yes, I know that they're in treatment and they're getting help. And honestly, I hope I hope that's true. And I hope that they benefit from it. But the fact that like this was the movie they stood behind them for is so weird to me in hindsight. And the fact that this is the movie that Stephen King came out to be like greatest comic book movie I've ever seen. And maybe he's just a massive Michael Keaton Batman fan, which would make sense, right? But this movie's not good. And it looks bad. And I can't recommend it on any level. I don't think there's much to enjoy here. And that's a shame. Because I wanted to like it. I wanted to be like, oh my God, yeah, I get it. Everybody who said it's the greatest thing ever. It's not even the greatest superhero movie to come out in the last 2 weeks. It's not even the top 5 superhero movies to come out in the last 12 months. And that's my review. If you like this video, like and subscribe to the channel. If you don't, hit the dislike button. Leave me in comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry. This episode, the algorithm goddess is Kiersey Clements. You deserve better, girl. You are so talented. And I would love to see you play Iris West in a movie that gives a shit about Iris West. If you want to follow me around the internet, you can. I'm at nerdynightly. But for now, do something nerdy tonight.